Welcome to the Numbers Game. I'm Jace, and I'm back with Marty and Nick on part 2 of 18 wealth lessons from Morgan Housel. Boys, how are we going? Fired up, ready to rock?
Going well. We'll just let the magic continue in this episode. I think we all took away something from the last episode. Hope our listeners did too. So, yeah, looking forward to the next 9. Pretty powerful. Nick, how you going?
Yeah, I loved the last episode. Going well, thanks, Marty. So, absolute gold in the last episode. Is this what he covers in the book? I'm not sure. Is this the book basically goes deeper into all of these? I must read the book.
Yep, The Psychology of Money. That's the name of the book.
Yeah, so we're giving everyone, 15 hours of read in about 40 minutes.
Making it easy.
Just giving the people what they need and what they want, even if they don't know it yet. But they're basically the tagline is timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. So, I mean, I've always thought the key to happiness was listening to the Numbers Game. So we must be doing something right. And here we are with part 2 of a 2-part series. So if you didn't listen to the last episode, we've covered the first 9 of the 18 wealth lessons on the last episode. So go back and listen to that now. Stop listening if you haven't listened. Go. Okay, and for everyone else who's still here, you're going to hear the next 9. So before we crack in, this episode's brought to you by Future Advisory. No need for a spiel there, just futureadvisory.com.au. Go and check out what the team over there do, and always happy to help the Numbers Game listeners. So cracking in where we left off, we're at the back half of the 18 wealth lessons, and I'm going to kick off with the first on my list to run through today, which is a real simple one, but somehow in the summary, it's almost got the most information out of all of them, which I found quite interesting. So the lesson is simply save money. Now, you read that and think, okay, well, great, awesome, Jace, but give us a little bit more. So the tagline under that is building wealth has little to do with your income or investment returns and a lot to do with your savings rate. So what that means is, and what I think I'm reading between the lines and getting at is here, you can only manage to invest and add to your investments that are getting returns what you're actually able to save. If you have no ability to save money in the first place, it's going to be very hard for you to start investing and to start to build your wealth. So these wealth lessons around saving money comes down to your savings rate. So when you start to think about, your personal savings, how much are you actually committed to putting aside each week? Have you done a budget? Have you looked at your income less all of your actual outgoings and can figure out how much money you should have left every week or every time you get paid? And that becomes your savings. He talks about learning to be happy with less manages to create a gap between what you have and what you want. So forgoing things in the short term to make sure that you can have more in the future. So tying all these lessons together, you think about compounding. The only way you can start to add your $50 or $100 a week towards your compounding to give you a life of freedom one day is to save money today and forgo things now so that you can have something in the future. So it's creating that gap between what you have now and what you want. So think about some of the low-level materialism of where you spend money, and maybe think about how you can maybe take the ego out of some of your spend rather than showing people what you have now, and think about how you can put that towards what you could have in the future. So I think it's a great lesson. I mean, I ducked past Nike at DFO the other day, got sucked into the 40% off sale. I have enough sneakers. So I'm guilty of going, I didn't look at how much money I should have saved and put aside that week, and instead I invested in another pair of Nikes. So I know that was realistically not part of the game plan for myself. So yeah, saving money, great one.
Like it, Jason. I think we've spoken about budgeting on this podcast before. We definitely have. And first thing that we get people to do when they come in to our office from a financial planning point of view is cash flows. What's the inflows? What's the outflows? Because whether you're earning $1 million or whether you're earning 50,000, it doesn't matter. We need to understand what we've got to work with, and then I guess engineering a budget where you split out what you actually have the ability to spend. So you're making sure you're putting that saving money, or if it's investing money, whatever it is, away prior to your Nike sneaker money. So really simple tool, but it's really the tool that you must learn before you can start to do anything else. Understanding your spending.
I'm teaching that to Charlie at the moment. Like, oh, you can save 40% off, like you said, the Nike runners. I go, what did you spend? What did you spend? Because you can almost hear the guilt in the voice. It's like it's an invaluable thing coming back to what the actual spend is as opposed to what you say. Because almost like I have to get them because it's 40% off.
Psychology of money. The psychology for me was a sale. And I almost felt like I was making money when I got the $330 Vaporflies.
That's the feeling. That's how they want you to feel. Exactly.
Maybe I'll sell them for $150 now, and I'll make $42 profit, and I'm back in the saving money game and getting a return. So
no, we're all manipulated to respond to that.
But no, look, and it's a great one. And Nick, what you said for anyone, and I know it sounds basic, but not everyone's done that. Not everyone's worked out what's left over at the end of their paycheck to what can become spendings and savings. So if you haven't done that, I need to do a refresh, but if you haven't, give it a go. Nick, what have you got?
Next one from me is room for error, or a margin of safety. It's the only effective way to safely navigate a world that is governed by odds and not certainties. So it's understanding whether you are investing, whether just life in general, what can go wrong, and what am I doing to compensate if something goes wrong, or to make sure I've got a safety net if something goes wrong? The most important part of every plan is planning on your plan, not going according to plan. So again, I go back to financial planning. I go back to investing in property or shares. What's your rainy day fund? What have you got as a backup? Investing, you look at diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if one asset class goes down, you've got another one that might go up, because they generally don't work in sync. So the wisdom is having room for error. Is acknowledging that uncertainty, randomness, and chance and unknowns are ever present in life. And the thing that it talks about, which I really liked, is by having that backup plan, it doesn't ruin you, or it's not catastrophic if something does go wrong, or if there is an error. So if you're in business and you're looking at making a significant big business investment, what happens if it doesn't come off? How much of your business capital are you putting into that investment? Can your business continue to trade if that doesn't come off? If you're making an investment in the share market for the first time, is it money? We talk about putting money away for the long term. Is it money you don't need? Do you have money in a more stable investment, whether it's cash or a term deposit or whatnot, that prevents you needing to sell that asset if there's a market correction or whatnot? So it's having backup, it's having room for error, so that room or that error, if it does occur, is not the end of you, or is not the end of your business, or is not the end of your investing career. So I really like that. Always assume that something is going to go wrong, because at some stage it will, and cover for that to happen.
Geez, I love that one, Nick. I think that's a cracker. I've seen many clients over time want to invest in investment properties just for the sake of investing in investment properties, rather than sort of going, well, what's my margin of safety? When is the right time for buy to me? What's my upside in 5 years? What could go wrong? Exactly what you were saying there. And that's something even myself I've learned over the journey. I was overactive because I was so aggressive in wanting to do more that really, when I break it down, instead of doing 2 investments, I could have stuck to a simple structure, getting something 30% off, like Jace was talking about runners, but on an asset, and knowing that that was a margin of safety. If things went badly, then my downside was covered, and then obviously with more upside according to the plan. So again, 3 moves instead of 10 moves would have been, that. So my margin of safety now is going, everything that I've learned, I don't care if I don't move for like 3 years on something, but it has to come into my parameters of what I want on my principles around investing now. And that just means patience. Again, it's like scoring 100 in cricket. Everyone loves when you're hitting 6s and 4s, but you got to know which balls to let go to the keeper too, so you don't get out in the process as well. So that's an invaluable lesson there. I'm going to go into reasonable versus rational. Do not aim to be coldly rational when making financial decisions. Aim to be aim to just be pretty reasonable. Reasonable is more realistic, and you have a better chance of sticking with it for the long run, which is what matters most when managing money. And what's often overlooked in finance is that there's something that can be technically true but contextually nonsense. So a rational investor makes decisions based on numeric facts. A reasonable investor makes them in a conference room surrounded by co-workers you want to think who you want to think highly of you, with a spouse that you don't want to let down, or judged against the silly but realistic competitors that are your brother-in-law, your neighbour, and your own personal doubts. Investing has social component that's often ignored when viewed through a strictly financial lens. That's an interesting one. I mean, you can come back to specific metrics, but to be reasonable, it's like you said on that last one, Nick, not everything goes according to plan. So you have to have some variance and flexibility in being reasonable around strong financial decisions as well, because they never quite work out exactly how you write them down or out of technical books as well. So, yeah, any addition on those?
No, I like it.
It's common sense, mate. They're all kind of intertwined, really, the more you read them.
I think about any time I've tried to set a strict financial goal, and haven't actually been reasonable in what we're trying to achieve, like really going too rational, like this plus this equals that. We should put that away because of this reason, the end. And it wasn't flexible, and then it's failed because it didn't allow for a bit of, being rational and assuming that a few things will go wrong and that a few things need to be able to adapt and change. So, no, I like it. They do all link together, which is really interesting.
They do.
Quite enjoying it, which this next one actually took me by surprise. It's actually, and that's the title of the lesson, is surprise. And then as I read into it, I was like, whoa, geez, okay, getting a little bit deep here. But so basically what he's talking about is that the correct lesson to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising. So think about all the events that have happened over the last couple of years that I'll give some examples of shortly. But what it's saying is that we should not use past surprises as a guide to future boundaries, and that we should use past surprises as an admission that we have no idea what might happen next. So history is a study of change, and ironically, we use that to map the future. So we're always kind of studying, and you hear it on the ads, like past performance is not an example of future performance, but they'll tell you that for X amount of time, it's been 8% returns, 10% returns, because that's all we've got to go by is the history of what's actually happened. So in talking about this, he goes on a few different things about how the decisions of what's been made in the past, don't let that just guide the decisions you make in the future, but be guided by it, and then don't be surprised when something totally different happens, but be prepared for it. Now, the sentence that kind of got me the most was that the most important economic events of the future, the things that will move the needle the most, are things that history gives us little to no guidance about. They'll be unprecedented events, and the unprecedented nature means that we won't be prepared for them, which is part of what makes them so impactful. This is true for both scary events like recessions and wars and great events like innovation. So even just those last bits, recessions and wars and scary events like COVID. COVID scared the shit out of everyone. The markets turned to shit. Things went crazy and wild. That was a total surprise, but certain people made good decisions during that time, and others reacted quite badly during that time and sold off at the bottom of the market rather than holding on and playing through. Then when you talk about recessions and wars, there's a lot of that's happening at the moment, whether it's, Russia and Ukraine or people scared about what China's doing. And then on the flip side of that as well, there is so much noise in the market about AI right now. Like you just look at, I think is it NVIDIA? Is that how you say the NVIDIA over in the US? Or wherever that is, the stock prices boomed off huge earnings based on AI and chips and all different things. So again, all these things, should we have used past things that have happened to help us guide our decision-making moving forward? Because, the noise around AI, if you were looking at things like innovation and trying to make decisions on future events to make investments on, you'd like to be able to think that you could be guided by that. So yeah, I found that really interesting. It got me thinking, do we do enough looking back into history to help guide what we're doing moving forward, or do we rely on it too much? So quite an interesting little take on past surprises.
I think we should completely rely on it. My opinion only, and not financial advice, but
Yeah.
you've only got to look at patterns and trends, and no matter what, whether it's AI versus the internet, whether it's recessions and wars, they've come and gone. Obviously, they look a lot different because of just how much the world's evolved. But the trends aren't. If you go back, you can see the trends occurring again and again and again. Ray Dalio's got a great book around around trends and the new world order. I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list because I think it's going to be extremely interesting.
His book Principles talks all about this, like how every lesson,
the rise and fall, and now you're seeing the fall of the US, similar to the Romans. So you just got to look at the trends. I think ignore the reasons they happened, but the trends are the trends, and the events that occurred post that, or the impact that had. Sorry, is probably a better way to explain it. So I think you need to definitely look back on history and go, okay, well, that's probably going to happen again. It's going to look a bit different, but the impact's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah,
there'll always be those black swan events, and there'll always be huge upside on a surprise or two as well. But the trends is something you can at least rely upon. And when you see a black swan event, you obviously try and get out nice and quickly. But there's a huge upside too that comes with surprises. So I think all you can control are the controllables, as we always say, Nick.
That's it. Next deal, as you say, Marty.
Next deal, next lesson.
Yeah. Next one for me is you and me. So beware taking financial cues from people playing a different game than you are. So I really like this because everyone has different goals and objectives. Particularly, this goes into investing mainly, is what Morgan talks about. But he looks at the cues of when people get into markets. Well, people get into markets and create a bubble because there's returns happening, or there's an uplift in a market. So most stock pickers or most brokers or whatever it may be would love to have the influence that market returns actually have on a market. Everyone drinks the Kool-Aid. Everyone wants to get involved when things are going up. But the reality is a lot of people that are invested in those or in particular assets, or a lot of people that are driving prices, or a lot of people that are driving commentary that's making markets go up, may have a completely different, maybe playing a different game to you, a different investment horizon or investment time frame, which would then result in a different risk profile. So bubbles form when the momentum of short-term returns attracts enough money that the makeup of investors shift from mostly long-term to short-term. So you think about the investment markets post-COVID and the rally that we had. A lot of that rally was caused by people just getting in who were short-term investors that didn't really know markets, didn't really know trends, just saw everything that was going up and wanted to get in. Now, generally what you've got in situations like that is other people who have been around for a long time who know markets selling, because they're going, well, Jesus, way overpriced now, I'm going to sell, then wait till all these people sell to jump back in. So, it's just, you need to understand that people have different agendas and people have very different investment timeframes, and longer than that, different goals, or deeper than that, different goals and objectives. So you need to understand what your goals and objectives are, what your time frame is, and invest and make decisions in line with that. Don't follow the herd. Don't listen to people that have a hidden agenda, and don't listen to people that have a different that are playing a different game than you, which I think is a great way to explain it. Get holistic advice and understand how particular investments relate to you, and ignore all of the other noise.
So great. I think if you've got specialised knowledge in your own game, you can do so much better than getting, be the puppet on a string and be pulled in every direction. It's so easy to do, the crypto stuff. I mean, if they say if you're going to get involved in a bubble, get involved early. Get your upside and get out, like the AI bubble at the moment. Like you get in early, you get your win. Same with crypto, but that's not my game anymore. And I know my game; it's a much more conservative game. but it's a game I understand and I know how it works. And I think, but you still get super excited when you see all these other areas. And this is the emotive thing again, where you go, oh, geez, I should have a little dabble. Well, maybe you can, but maybe it's 10%, right? Instead of, going all in at 80% and blowing your money on it. So again, set your ratios, know your game. You don't want to be playing cricket when you're good at tennis and vice versa. So, it's a great one. The next one I've got is you'll change. Long-term planning is harder than it seems because people's goals and desires change over time. An underpinning of psychology is that people are poor forecasters of their future selves. Imagining a goal is easy and fun. Imagining a goal in the context of a realistic life stresses that grow with competitive pursuits and is something entirely different. And I think this is a really good one because of the fact that we just don't anticipate what we're going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years. And we think about, as people, how much we've changed over the last 5, 10 and 15 years and what we're talking about, what we would have done when we were 25. So how do you start to, I always say, I said this to one of the brokers a couple of months ago, how do you support yourself for 15 years' time? What are the important things? What could you go through? Kids, what sort of life impacts could happen? How do you get prepared? How do you ensure that you're ready for those changes? Now, you can't anticipate how you're going to change as a person, but you've got to at least consider it in going that your goals and drivers might change. I know my goals and drivers very different now compared to what it was at 35. And that seems to shift dramatically every 5 years depending on what I learn. So it's you got to cater for that as well. So, I think that's a really good one.
Just hearing you talk about that, like you'll change. I think Case and I got together about 6, maybe 7. I'm going to go with 6 just in case. Oh, if she's listening, maybe it's 7. Shit, I'll put the pressure on now. But when we got together, the conversation was, do we want to have kids? And we both said no. And we just straight out said, no, we both don't want kids. Cool, great, high five. I think we made out and got pretty excited about aligning on that. And the rest is history. We got married and 5 or 6 years on from that, we both turned around and went, oh, shit, maybe we do want kids. And all of a sudden, there's that change. The plans we were making 5 or 6 years ago around how we were spending our money, where we were investing, what we were doing, all of a sudden it's flipped on its head because of those change in plans. We're now going, oh, maybe the house that needs to look different. Maybe it's not living in a city, it's out in the suburbs to be near friends and family and an extra bedroom and so on and so forth. So definitely striking a chord there on that one, Marty.
Yeah, and we had a situation where we had purchased a house thinking about having kids, and then we were really struggling with getting to that point. And then we sold the house, and then of course we had the kid. so you go, things can change, and you kick yourself, and then you go, well, we were trying to make the right decision, but that's where that reasonable and rational comes in. Going, just do what you need to do where you're at, and then whatever evolves from there. It's interesting, but even perception for what you want to do in the future changes, and all sorts of different things. So you got to cater for all that. And don't anticipate you'll be the same in 5, 10, 15 years' time.
Love how all these lessons keep tying together. The next one that I've got is nothing's free. And it says that everything has a price, but not all prices appear on the labels. And the easiest way that there's a whole bunch of different stuff, but this one I think kind of sums it up the most is why do so many people who are willing to pay the price for cars, houses, food, and vacations find it so hard to pay the price for a good investment return? And the answer is simple. It talks about, when you get the immediate, satisfaction of the new car or the holiday, you get your return straight away. You've got the feeling of the car, you've got the holiday, you've got the fancy meal on a Friday night with a glass of wine when you're at the expensive restaurant. However, the price of investing success is not immediately obvious. And that's why people have such a hard time investing and putting that money towards those good investment returns. And a lot of the time it feels like, it talks about in this psychology of money that it feels like you're doing the wrong thing because you might put your money in the market and the price might fluctuate and go down and you feel like you've had a negative reaction to trying to do the right thing and then you've been kind of tarnished for it. So it talks about not all prices appear the same and not all the price tags are on the labels. So Interesting one. Again, the psychology of these immediate returns when you pay for things like food or holidays versus getting in the market and investing long term and paying the price for those longer term returns. So it says market returns are never free and never will be. They demand you pay a price like any other product. So changing the mindset around trying to be immediately satisfied when you put your money somewhere and instead thinking longer term and what it's going to mean for you in the long term.
Yeah, again, just linking back to those disciplines, isn't it? And it's, look, I get it. We've all got nice things, but I think it's the ultimate is finding that balance, having, at the end of the day, life's short too. So, I hope everyone is listening to this and thinking, Jesus, I've just got to give everything up and squirrel all my money away and wait for doomsday. I think it's not about that. It's understanding your values and what they are and being content with them and not, continually changing the narrative and protecting yourself at the same time.
There's a great book called The Last Policeman. I forget who wrote it, but it's a story about this meteor is going to hit the Earth in 12 months' time, and basically everyone knows they're going to die. And everyone's like running around, supermarkets are out of control, people flogging food, just breaking up, divorcing, just running absolute muck. But it talks about the story of this policeman who continues to do his job for that 12 months because he has real meaning in his work and he loves doing what he does. And again, it's like, when you wake up tomorrow, you want to go, well, what's the point? What's the point of today that gives me real significance and meaning in what I do? And that's the whole course, the whole metaphor of the book is coming to that place of going, this is the day we have and it's really important. So you want significance and meaning in that day. You're right, Nick. It's like that balance of going, you want to have experiences in real time because you don't know how much time you've got, but you also want to be rational and set yourself up for the future. So there's a fine balance there that I think all angles can be explored and looked at. But yeah.
Last two. Let's do it.
Last two. Okay. So when you'll believe anything. Stories are by far the most powerful force in the economy. The more you want something to be true, the more likely you are to believe a story that overestimates the odds of it being true. I really like this, and I think at the same time, and Morgan talks about this, is you have to be careful that stories don't hold you back at the same time. So whether it's a story or a belief that you have in something from some time ago, just revisiting that story and making sure that it's still correct and making sure that it's not holding you back. Incentives are a powerful motivator, and we should always remember how they influence our own financial goals and outlooks. There is no greater force in finance than room for error, and the higher stakes, the wider it should be. So again, just talking about taking risks, implementing room for error, and not drinking the Kool-Aid, because you'll believe anything if you want to believe it. So I really like that. And it's how many people have beliefs that either, number one, hold them back, or number two, keep them invested in something that they shouldn't be invested in because there's something attached to it, whether it be emotionally or whatnot, or they've got a belief that is not necessarily correct. So really like that one as well.
That's great. We all want to believe our stories are true. It's very true. We've lived our own experiences, and we'll find stories to back that up. So it's
correct.
It's good to change your perspective, like you do your underwear every day. Learn something new, shift a little. The last one, the big finale, the seduction of pessimism. I really like this one. Optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like someone trying to help you. Optimism is a belief that the odds of a good outcome are in your favour over time, even when there will be setbacks along the way. I really like this one. Pessimists extrapolate. Did I say this? Often extrapolate present trends without accounting for how markets adapt. Progress happens too slowly to notice, but setbacks happen too quickly to ignore. I like this. I think what I'm stalling on it is what's going through my mind at the moment is I think, again, it's just that fair and equitable way of looking at things. Like again, I have an optimistic bias. There's no doubt about that. And that's by choice, because I just feel like looking at something in a progressive way can really take you to places and draw in great people that want to be optimistic moving forward. So that's a choice I made very early on in life. But I always ask what could go wrong. And usually it's somewhere in between is the right answer. And I think you've got to have those filters. But optimism does sound like a sales pitch because you're just excited about the way forward. So for me, when you set goals, I go, well, yeah, of course you're going to get them, but I have this optimism bias to go, you're going to do what it takes to try and get it. But I think that for me, that's that fair value of going, what could go wrong? Have that nice plan of rationale in between to get to where you really need to go. So yeah, interesting one.
Mate, absolutely loved it, guys. And for all of those that have got through the 2 episodes, the 18 lessons, and if you do want to go for a read, we will put in the show notes the link to Kyle Kowalski's summary of the book that we've used to go through as well. So thank you, Kyle, as well. And a huge shout out to Morgan Housel for the fantastic book, The Psychology of Money. Thank you for giving us something to go through. Plenty of nuggets of gold. If you've enjoyed that, like our show, share, subscribe, tell your friends and family. We are here to help people make better decisions with their money, and hopefully that's what the numbers game is giving you guys. Until next time.
Game over.